We're going to be reading a poem today on our reading workbook page 284, so make sure you have it out. The poem is called Three Wise Old Women. It says, in the closed reader habit, it says stanzas 1 through 4 describe one main event. Reread the poem, underline one line in each stanza that sums up the event that the stanza describes. So we're looking for one line in stanza 1, 2, 3, and 4 that sums up what the poem or what that stanza is talking about, the event. So the first stanza. Three wise old women were they, who went to walk on a winter day. One carried a basket to hold some berries, one carried a ladder to climb for cherries. The third, and she was the wisest one, carried a fan to keep off the sun. So what was that poem about? What was that stanza about? The three women who went on a walk on a winter day. Okay, that's what they're doing. On their walk, they all do different things, but what sums up stanza 1 is those three women going on a walk. Stanza 2, stanza 2. But they went so far and they went so fast, they quite forgot their way at last. So one of the wise women cried in a fright, "Suppose we should meet a bear tonight. Suppose he should eat me and me and me. What is to be done?" cried all the three. So what sums up that stanza? They got lost. They quite forgot their way at last, which means they got lost. So that sums up stanza 2. Stanza 1, they went for a walk. Stanza 2, they got lost. Stanza 3, what's going to happen? Are they going to get eaten by the bear? Let's see. "Dear, dear," said one, "we'll climb a tree. They're out of the way of the bears will be." But there wasn't a tree for miles around. They were too frightened to stay on the ground. So they climbed their ladder up to the top and sat there screaming, "We'll drop, we'll drop." So what did they do in stanza 3? They climbed their ladder. Remember, one of them brought a ladder, so they climbed to the top of the ladder so they wouldn't get eaten by the bear. All right, stanza 4. But the wind was strong as the wind could be, and blew the ladder right out to sea. So the three wise women were all afloat in a leaky ladder instead of a boat. And every time the waves rolled in, of course the poor things were wet to the skin. So what happened in stanza 4? The ladder blew to the sea. All right, in our last stanza, then they took their basket, the water to bail. They put up their fan instead of a sail. But what became of the wise woman then, whether they ever sailed home again? Whether they saw any bears or no, you must find out, for I don't know. So we don't know what happened to the women. Did they get eaten by a bear? Did they get lost at sea? Did they get home? Doesn't tell us. Interesting poem. All right, if we look on the questions on page 285, the first question, part A, what purpose do stanzas 1 and 2 serve in the three wise old women? So remember, stanza 1 was they went for a walk, and stanza 2 was they got lost. So what purpose do those two stanzas show? They show the women's fear of meeting a bear. They introduced all three women and a problem they face. They show the third woman was the wisest of the three. They describe the adventures the women have after they get lost. It should be letter B. They introduce all three women and the problems they face. Part B, choose one detail from each stanza to support our answer. So we're going to choose a detail from stanza 1 and then a detail from stanza 2. So stanza 1, three wise old women were they. One carried a basket to hold some berries. The third, and she was the wisest one. Which one of those supports they introduced the women and the problem they face? Letter A, three wise old women were they. That introduces the characters, the three women. So in stanza 2, what shows us that they have a problem? But they went so far and they went so fast, they quite forgot their way at last. So one of the wise old women cried in fright. So the one that supports the problem they face is they quite forgot their way at last. Now we're going to describe what stanzas 3 and 4 add to the narrative in terms of setting and events. We're going to use the chart and then write a paragraph on page 287. So if we turn and look on page 287, so in this chart we're asked to write about the settings and events in stanzas 3 and 4. So in stanza 3, remember they wanted to climb a tree. Wanted to climb tree to escape bears. Couldn't find one. So they climbed their ladder. In stanza 4, they were blown out to sea. They were on a ladder instead of a boat. And they were soaked. It talked about their skin being soaked. So you're going to take those events and settings that happened in stanzas 3 and 4, and you're going to write a paragraph explaining how they develop the narrative and how they tie in how the events from stanzas 3 and 4 tie in with the events from stanzas 1 and 2. So they definitely tie in because in the first and second stanza, the women go for a walk and get lost. And in the first stanza, it tells us the things that they have, which is why we know about them climbing the ladder instead of the tree. So you can write that in your own words. Here is a sample answer that you can use if you are stuck. In stanza 3, the women want to climb a tree to get away from bears. This is foolish. Not only are there no bears around, there are also no trees to climb. Instead, they climb their ladder. Stanzas 4 describes how the women and their ladder are blown out to sea. Here, their ladder becomes a leaky boat, and they get soaked. Stanzas 3 and 4 connect the first two main events of the poem. The women go for a walk and then they get lost. Those were the first two events. With the last events of the poem, the women deal with being at sea. If you have any questions, send me an email. We are done with lesson 16, so you will need to tear out page 280 all the way to page 292. That's the lessons that we've done this week to turn in on your test day.